Watch the Mysteries of Existence channel for divine enlightenment. To know more about yourself, the physical and subtle aspects of the universe, and the source of all that is.
This is a message brought to you by the Harbinger of the Last Covenant, His Grace, Iyke Nathan Uzorma, author, Archbishop, University Chancellor, scholar in extraterrestrial research, professor of Christian education at St. Thomas-A-Backet University, England, recipient of Nelson Mandela Excellent Leadership Award in Africa, former living Grand Master in the Order of Terrestrial and Astral hierarchy, amongst others.
Dear listeners, this is the interlude session 20 in this Mysteries of Existence channel, titled, Life After Death Experiences, Part 7. It is a great exposition of the Harbinger of the Last Covenant, His Grace, Iyke Nathan Uzorma, for every human on earth, which is read here as follows. My beloved children of men, the just concluded prelude to this exposition, which covered sessions 2 to 6, focused on the mystery of the ubiquitous conditions of heaven and hell. Having done with that, I will now commence the diverse aspects of the life after death experiences itself. Our current interlude sessions will run into several parts, due to the volumes of the materials involved. In this particular session, and some other sessions along the line, I will dwell on the physical existence of some people said to be dead and buried. There are some people already dead and buried, but still physically living, moving around and even working in other places. This sort of a thing occurs in a unit of the first stage of the hereafter. When I am done with this, I will then focus on other experiences still within the first stage, before going into other higher stages and related issues. The first part of the foregoing interlude sessions was my introduction to the subject matter of life after death experiences. You may recall that, in the opening part of the introduction, I stated thus, in different parts of the world, there are dead people who walk amongst the living, but the time hasn't come yet for the living to fully recognize and live with the dead. That time will surely come in the world of man, when the little line of separation between the living and the dead is finally joined together. Now, my beloved listeners, when we talk about life after death, several things are involved. Experiences in the hereafter are diverse and multitudinous. One man's experience may not be another man's experience. All experiences fall into different groupings, but even in each group of experience, there are still differences in the order of specific consciousness of each individual. Therefore, in the life after death experiences, one man's Peter, in a benevolent dimension, may be another man's Abu Bakr, one man's Blessed Mother Mary, may be another man's Swami Gadadhar, and so on. This occurs especially in the first stage, which will be discussed in other sessions. Your belief system, premised upon your state of consciousness at the point of departure or death, are all part of this. Earthmen, if I tell you now that, as our faces are different, so as our life experiences after death differ, you may or may not accept it. I am aware that, what I have just said is contrary to some belief systems, but I respect your beliefs, if you hold otherwise. In this session, however, based on what I earlier mentioned about the dead walking around amongst the living, I will start from here. Hopefully, it may take us to other sessions. The issue of the dead amongst the living is equally a unit in the first stage of the afterlife existence, as earlier mentioned. That kind of existence has occurred and is hitherto occurring in diverse places. We should take cognizance of same, and also discuss it. We shouldn't shy away from it. I have also had some direct physical encounters with the departed ones along this line, which I will be sharing here with the listeners. In one of our questions and answers episodes, uploaded in this Mysteries of Existence channel, a question about the dead amongst the living came up. My friend in the United States, Dr. Moses Iyke, brought it up, when he asked us, after someone is dead and buried, can he still live physically on this earth? If yes, is that another you of the person? Part of my response to this question, earlier uploaded, goes thus. In the light of diverse stages of consciousness, many things are possible. Another friend also asked me about some people who died and were buried, but still physically seen living or working in other places. This is an occasional occurrence. When the subtle layers of the atomic structures, which compose the physical aspects of being, are not fully dissolved at the point of death, the remnants will revert to the adjacent level, and cause the subtle body to temporarily manifest and live on the physical realm. That I am fully aware of such incidents. There are certain dead and buried people, who are still physically living elsewhere. This kind of scenario seldom occurs, but when it does occur, it comes under certain conditions and classifications of reality. This has to do mostly with intense emotions, regarding some unresolved issues physically oriented. However, not all unresolved issues are premised upon the related foregoing experience. Nevertheless, when the veil between the living and the dead is severed in some isolated cases, the dead walks amongst the living. And in this terms, other yous are not involved. Rather, the etheric energy within the sub-physical system is therein configured to the gross material elements, so that the departed one, in human terms, can live with other physical humans elsewhere. In the general terms, the physically oriented humans won't know about it. As earlier mentioned, I am aware of this issue, and have directly witnessed same. As I said, this seldom occurs, but it does occur occasionally. And when it does happen, it is primarily for the completion of an allotted span of life not completed, due to the emergency exit of consciousness from the human physical structure. Now, this emergency exit or death could occur via accidents or any kind of sudden death. And because the sub-physical body is thus materialized to the physical body in this case, though it still retained higher etheric vibrations, it will be jammed off from the physical system by certain interferences of consciousness. Consequently, upon meeting any human who knew of the previous death of the individual involved, the sub-physical body will immediately vacate the physical systems of reality. The person involved will then disappear in our human terms. There are so many things involved in the afterlife encounters. I have received several questions on this. Even though there are general groupings of experiences in this connection, there are equally specific experiences, all which are determined solely by the consciousness of a departed one. As already mentioned, this was part of my response to the question of Dr. Moses in that episode. Simply stated, this has to do with the case of someone who died somewhere, but still living elsewhere in the world of man. As I earlier said, I am also aware of this, in the practical terms. Some of you may have heard of such incidents, some of you may have seen such incidents, while some of you listening to this exposition may possibly be the ones directly involved in this. Few years ago, a man named Austin came to me. He was stranded in some material aspects of earthly existence. I took him in, gave him free accommodation, took care of his feeding and other material needs. I also placed him on a monthly allowance. After about a year and 2 months, he stole some money from me and ran away. After about 2 years and 5 months later, he came to my house around 9 in the morning hours. He met me playing table tennis during my morning exercise. The security men attached to my residence, including my children and domestic staff, saw him. They asked him where he had been all these years. He simply responded that he has come to plead with the Harbinger of the Last Covenant. He greeted me, and I said, "My son Austin, you are here, welcome." He responded thus, "My beloved daddy, I have come to see you." Then he was told to wait for me to conclude the morning exercise. He didn't sit down to wait, rather he stood in a corner, like someone with a remorseful heart. When I was done with the exercise and taken care of myself, I came down to see him. Consequently, he knelt before me and pleaded for forgiveness. Austin told me that I didn't deserve the way he behaved towards me. Then he specifically told me thus, Harbinger of the last covenant, they said that I will not enter, except I come first to plead for your forgiveness and receive prayers from you. When I asked him about those who said that, he simply said, Daddy, please forgive me and pray for me. Finally, I did as he requested, and he left. 5 days later, another man, named Victor, came to my house. He was an old friend of Austin. When Austin was with me, Victor does come to visit him, but after Austin left, we didn't see Victor again. This time around, Victor came to ask me for some assistance. There are still some things about this Victor, which I will bring up in our next interlude material. However, when Victor came, he was informed by those in my residence that Austin visited 5 days earlier. Victor never believed that such a visit truly occurred. When it dawned on him that it was so, he informed everyone that Austin was dead and buried 3 months ago. The people who were in my abode didn't equally believe his story, because they all saw Austin physically and discussed with him. At last, Victor also told me the same thing, upon hearing from me what transpired during the visit of Austin. This was finally confirmed by us to be true. We then understood that Austin died in a car accident. After his death, the same day that he died, he was also seen physically in a certain church. Those who slept in the church, for a collective purpose of morning devotion, saw him around 2 of the morning hours. The doors of this worship center were locked from the inside, but no one knew how Austin got in. I personally confirmed this from the church officers, and I am willing to also guide you on a personal investigation of this, if you so desire. In that early morning hours, those inside the church saw Austin praying before the altar. They couldn't figure out when and how he left the church, but he wasn't seen again during the morning devotion at 5 a.m. Upon the breaking of the day, they were later informed by the police that Austin died the previous day. I confirmed all this for myself. I even visited the parents of Austin. They confirmed the death of their son and showed me where he was buried. As earlier mentioned, things like this do happen. When it occurs, it belongs to a unit or segment in the first stage of the afterlife experiences. When Austin told me that he wasn't allowed to enter, but was directed to see me first and plead for forgiveness, such a directive mainly comes from the divine monitors, in the realms beyond. I will speak more about the divine monitors in subsequent materials. These monitors are the ones divinely empowered to, amongst other things, guide the path of the departed ones in the realms beyond. The monitors are great angelic beings. They guide the path of death, especially in the first stage of the life after death experiences. The monitors, or whatever name you may choose to call them, are completely in charge of all the ethereal boundaries between the physical world and the sub-physical world, in the realms beyond. The first stage of all the afterlife encounters occur in the sub-physical realms of existence. The monitors hold forte in this first invisible layer, beyond the world of man. In the life after death experiences, they provide guidance to the departed ones, even unto the immediate adjacent state beyond the sub-physical systems of reality. The aforementioned adjacent state of the sub-physical deals solely with acclimatization in the hereafter, as a prelude to the next level. Some living sons and daughters of men on the physical realm of earth could be divine monitors in another layer of reality, guiding path of the departed. This is a matter for another day. However, they can play this role, whether or not they know it, on the physically oriented conscious level. All that you are not currently known to you. That will be all for now. A word is enough for the wise. Peace and blessings.